Members of the Department of Education and state educators, thank you for attending my briefing. My name is Michael Everett, and I would like to present to you a 5-minute decision briefing regarding changes I'm recommending we make to our current education system. At the conclusion of this presentation, I'm going to ask you to support my plan. The education system in the United States is failing an entire generation of Americans, and the result will be a generation that grows up unprepared to cope with the demands of the 21st century. This is also a national security issue, as America needs an educated population to maintain its place in the world. My resolution would fundamentally change our education system in order to meet these demands. For the purposes of this briefing, I want to explore very broadly the education system in the United States and how it is failing to prepare the next generation to meet the challenges of the 21st century. Generation Z, that segment of the population that is just now coming of age, will start moving into leadership positions in the public, governmental, and private sectors during the next decade, and will lead America for the better part of this century. Some demographics first. Generation Z, Gen Z, refers to people born between 1997 and 2012. Currently, there are 67 million Generation Zers growing up in the United States, which is approximately 20% of the total U.S. population. Generation Z is the most ethnically diverse and largest generation in American history. Born completely under the wings of the internet, they are digital natives who have little or no memory of the world as it existed before smartphones, with the average Generation Zer getting their first iPhone at age 12. As a population, Generation Z communicates primarily through social media and spend as much time on their phones as older generations do watching television. Now to the education piece. I will address concerns with the education process experienced by Generation Z in 2 ways: methodology and curriculum. They are all interrelated and are having an effect on the education of Generation Z and how they are preparing or not properly preparing this generation for leadership in the 21st century. First, methodology. The best way to describe what is happening to Generation Z in school is to quote the Australian educator Mark McCrindle. American schools are 19th century institutions using 20th century techniques to teach 21st century students, and we wonder why traditional education sometimes struggles to connect with students. For Generation Z, who have grown up with instant access to information, school feels like a slow process that leaves the student waiting rather than creating. Part of the problem is that we teach the old way, and Generation Z learns in a new way. Generation Z learners crave interactive experiences and see a lot of value in tools like digital textbooks, online videos, and game-based training. Curriculum. What is taught is changing as well. In previous generations, school was where a nation's population was level set, with a common core of understanding and a shared belief in certain facts, whether that be history, the sciences, or personal responsibility. Generation Z, growing up on the internet, had a world of information from which to select and could choose what fit their expectations. The curriculum changes in today's schools does little to pull that a la carte learning off the internet into a coherent set of learning principles that give a people a shared understanding of a subject. Schools no longer teach civics or government or even the Constitution. American history is frequently challenged. An example is the Founding Fathers are viewed not as the architects of great experiment in a representational government and the inherent freedom of man, but as racist white male slave owners. Rhetoric, critical thinking, and debate have given way to coding courses and studies in subjects that do not necessarily prepare students for college or leadership roles in the workforce. Here's my plan. Number 1, the Department of Education needs to identify what skills are necessary to maintain U.S. dominance in the second half of the 20th century, and we should focus on those skills. Number 2, the Department of Education needs to partner with states and academic institutions to ensure the following. A, our children are given the fundamental instruction in our primary schools. In order to ensure mastery of these emerging skills, rigorous standards must be applied at all levels in academia across the country in order to ensure that the next generation grow up to assume their leadership positions in order to compete in the global marketplace. It is no secret that U.S. students are not up to par with their international peers. The most recent national testing scores testify to this issue of education in America. The United States placing 17th in reading, 26th in math, and 21st in science when compared to other Western nations. Here's the bottom line. We have an entire generation that is growing up without the necessary foundation to compete on the global workspace. If we do not enact these recommendations now, we will fail this new generation and America will lose its leadership role in the global workspace. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. I will now take your questions.